Grandfather clocks can have a high investment value as long as they are maintained and restored carefully. Grandfather clocks increase greatly in value over time. Sometimes the high-quality, working antique and vintage grandfather clocks are worth more than the brand-new ones. The rarest grandfather clocks, for example, from the Golden Age, can be worth as much as $100,000. The functioning of a grandfather clock is one of the crucial factors. A grandfather clock that keeps the time count properly is going to be worth more than if it lost such ability. However, even if a grandfather clock works, the overall condition of the movement and the look are also important for the value. A well-maintained grandfather clock will be worth more. In addition, the visual condition of a grandfather clock will influence the worth. Whether the finish is faded or not, the visibility of numbers on the dial, the scratches on the surface, or on brass details should be kept in mind when the value of a grandfather clock is established. The history of grandfather clocks began a long time ago, and the older a grandfather clock is, the more it will cost. For example, antique grandfather clocks are very rare and expensive, while vintage grandfather clocks are more common and cost less than antique. There is no strict rule about what counts as an antique grandfather clock and what is a vintage grandfather clock. The approximate line for vintage grandfather clocks goes around from 50 to 100 years old. If a grandfather clock is older than 100 years, then it counts as an antique. The grandfather clocks that are less than 50 years old and for mass production are normally not worth much. The quality of craftsmanship and materials will help to determine the value of a grandfather clock, as they influence how long the clock can last and if it can be passed from generation to generation to generation. In addition, the recognition of a grandfather clock's brand can be associated with the guarantee of quality or with the rarity. Many clockmakers are no longer in business, which might help to increase the value of grandfather clocks of their production. For example, antique grandfather clocks from the Black Forest, Swiss, and French clock craftsmen are highly sought items by collectors and can be sold between $10,000 and $75,000. The grandfather clock's aesthetics depend on two factors. The first one is the overall condition of the facade and details. The second factor is the style of a grandfather clock. Some grandfather clocks are full of details while others have rather simple designs. The type of wood that is used to craft a grandfather clock is going to impact the value. For example, grandfather clocks made of oak tend to have higher values over time since it is a long-lasting material. In addition, the carved details, unique decorations, and valuable materials for the dial will influence the value. Needless to mention that the movement of a grandfather clock is the most important part. High-quality movements are more likely to last longer and, of course, will cost more as well. The type of the movement will also influence the price. The pendulum should be moving in a very consistent motion to make the gears and plates functioning without any harsh movements or errors and keeping the accurate time.